Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 2:15. Without any delay, start explanation. There must be someone that graduated from Shrek Academy in the Northsea Army Corps, while the first benefit that Shrek Academy gave its graduates was a high starting point in life. If a Shrek Academy's graduate were to join the army, it would be unlikely that he would be made a mere cadet. At the very least, there was no way he would be a cadet forever. Otherwise, he would not be qualified to graduate from Shrek Academy. Everything would be much easier to handle as long as there was someone on their side. As for the excuse, Tang San had already thought of a good one in a jiffy. The Northsea Army Corps was founded 1,600 years ago. It was an organizational system with a long history in Dolor Continents Federation. The Northsea Army Corps possessed very powerful naval and aerial warfare capabilities. There were 3 divisions in the Army Corps, namely the North Sea Air Force, the North Sea Marines and also the North Sea Fleet. The North Sea Fleet was the largest among the divisions due to their over 30 warships docked in the North Sea Army Corps free port. This was the main line of defense against the sea soul beasts. As the North Sea waters sea soul beasts were among the strongest in the entire Dolor continent, the North Sea Fleet's deployment was also the strongest of all Navy forces. Even though there was no pier or port in North Sea City, the North Sea Fleet was certainly more powerful than the East Sea Fleet judging by their fighting capacity. There was a total of over 12,000 fighters in the North Sea Fleet and a diving support staff of over 30,000. In turn, the North Sea Air Force possessed over 70 different types of aircraft. Other than airplanes, there was also the Special Rapid Reaction Force that was also known as the Mecha Force. The Federation's air power was mostly a combination of mechas and fighter planes together, and there were many technical arms involved. An ordinary land army corps prioritized its fighters as the main personnel, so it would have about 30 to 40,000 members. As the North Sea Army Corps requires a large amount of support staff, the entire Army Corps had a total of over 80,000 personnel. It was worthy of being the main Army Corps. For this very reason, the North Sea Army Corps military rank was half a rank superior compared to another Army Corps of the same rank. When Tang San and his companions left the rental car, they could not help feeling shocked by the sight in the distance. The rental car dropped them off at a location about 1 kilometer away from the North Sea Army Corps base, as beyond that was the restricted military zone. The first impression they had of the North Sea Army Corps was one of boundlessness stretching beyond infinity. From where they were standing, it seemed the periphery of the North Sea Army Corps had no walls. It was surrounded by iron wire netting a few dozen meters tall. This was, in fact, an electric fence. Any living creature that came into contact with it would be tested by high-voltage electricity. As they gazed into the distance, they could see large military vehicles coming and going through the front, and there were several airplanes positioned in the inner part of the base. There were numerous other military installations that they could not identify. It looks impressive. I suddenly feel like Big Brother's ambition to become a soldier is a very good choice. Xie spoke with some excitement. Men were inherently attracted to military affairs. The current development of soul technology had already allowed weapons to become extremely powerful. Even the most powerful soul masters dared not confront such soul weapons that were capable of destroying both heaven and earth. A powerful military force, along with the Federation, was the safeguard for everything. The entire Dolor Federation had 2 million standing armies in 6 great military zones. The North Sea Army Corps precisely belonged to the Northeast Military Zone, and it was also the most powerful Air Force Navy Army Corps among the 3 Northeast Army Corps. Come, let's go over there. Everyone act natural. Tang San walked at the front with a smile on his face while the rest followed behind. The group did not carry anything else other than some simple soul storage tools on their bodies. Yuanan's pair of damaged giant hammers was also kept in her soul storage tool. They were blocked by a troop of patrolling soldiers before they could even approach the main entrance of the North Sea Army Corps base. Stop. This is a restricted military zone. Stay away. The patrolling soldiers approached them with a car. It was apparent that the base had been aware of their presence for some time. Tang San took 2 steps forward and spoke, "Hello. We are Shrek Academy students, and we're on a testing mission. The Academy arranged this mission so that we could undergo training with your respected Army Corps. Please help us to circulate the notice for a moment. Shrek Academy? We haven't been notified. It was apparent that the patrolling soldiers were not so easily fooled. Tang Wulin shrugged. He spoke with a helpless expression. If you had been notified, then it wouldn't be a test anymore. The fact is, the Academy wanted us to come for the training, but we were given no assistance. We had to figure out a way to enter your respected Army Corps for training. All of you know very well there's nothing much we can do. We can only come over as such and follow the direct path to inquire if we can arrange for our training here. The patrolling soldier raised his brows. Are all of you really from Shrek Academy? How can you prove it? Tang Wulin smiled. Prove it? That's easy. As he was saying that, he made a gesture to his companions. In the next moment, all 7 of them unleashed their martial soul simultaneously. When the 7 of them unleashed their martial soul simultaneously, with their numerous soul rings of impressive levels, it was an exceedingly shocking scene, especially before a troop of ordinary soldiers. When soldiers in the patrol car witnessed the soul rings bloom before them with rather high ranks, they could not help widening their eyes in surprise. 5 soul rings. All of them had 5 soul rings. Tang Wulin and his companions maintained a complete flying wedge formation. Tang Wulin stood at the front. Behind him was a row of 3 with Xu Xiaoyan in the center, flanked by Yuan and Yehui and Yi Xinglan. At the rear was another 3 in a row, with Xu Lixi in the middle. Yu Zhenyu and Xie Xie stood at his sides. Even though they were not combat ready, but they still maintained the battle formation out of habit. Especially after they had acted so passively when they were confronting the evil soul masters earlier, they frequently discussed each other's issues during their drive to this city. Tang Wulin stood at the head with 3 purple, 1 black and 1 green soul ring on his body. More precisely, it was 1 green-gold soul ring. Even though the soldiers were not soul masters, they still could not help staring in bewilderment when they saw the green soul ring on Tang Wulin's body. On the other hand, they did not see any soul ring below purple rank on the rest of the Shrek 7 monsters. This signified that these people were above all else. 7 5-ringed soul kings, and these youths appeared to be only about 20 years old. The soldiers in the patrol car were around the same age as them. Admiration, envy, and all sorts of different emotions shot through these soldiers' hearts in a split second. They were all peers, but how was there such a huge disparity? The soldier in charge of the patrol car gulped. He calmed himself down before he raised his military soul communicator and pressed a button. The interesting thing about such a military soul communicator was that it was completely different from civil soul communicators. It had no dialing function. Instead, every button represented a specific line of communication. Thus, the soldier had only pressed once, and the call was immediately picked up. Report. Discovered 7 suspicious persons claiming to be Shrek Academy students wanting to enter the base for training. All 7 of them are 5-ringed Soul King Soul Masters, aged about 20 years old. Please advise. The soldier listened to the order that came from the soul communicator before he immediately responded, "Yes, sir." He hung up the communicator as he stared at Tang Wulin's group of 7 with a peculiar look in his eyes. He spoke, "Please hold on for a moment. A car is coming over right now to pick you up." All the faces in Tang Wulin's group of 7 cracked into a smile. With a car coming over to pick them up, they were on the right track. It seemed like their assumption that there was certainly someone from Shrek Academy within the Northsea Army Corps base was proving accurate. Moreover, Shrek Academy had played a major role on the continent, so its inner court students were highly sought after regardless of where they went. It did not take long before another military vehicle drove over. There were no patrolling soldiers in the car this time. Tang Wulin's group of 7 boarded the car, while the patrol car from earlier followed behind and headed toward the Northsea Army Corps base. Adapt yourselves to the situation as it comes. Our main goal is to stick around long enough to get a chance to contact some seniors with authority in the Army Corps. We don't need to borrow anymore if we can manage the task in a peaceful manner, Tang Wulin said softly. Yi Xinglan nodded in agreement. We mustn't be separated, no matter what. It won't be an issue if we can stay together. Tang Wulin nodded. The Northsea Army Corps base was truly enormous. Its extensive scale could be seen from the outside, but one could only experience how massive this place was upon entering. The car drove them for a total of almost 20 minutes before stopping. It pulled up in front of an inconspicuous but gigantic building. As they arrived, a single soldier standing at the door made a gesture inviting them inside. Tang Wulin and his companions maintained their battle formation as they walked into the building. He could not help frowning slightly as soon as he walked through the door, as the place that looked a little like a warehouse was filled with all sorts of metallic equipment which they had difficulty recognizing. A military officer with a second lieutenant rank walked over to them. "All of you are from Shrek Academy? Do you have any proof of identification with you?" Tang Wulin hastily retrieved the badges he had made and passed them to the officer. The officer took a glance but did not examine them very much before he passed the badges back. "Follow me." As he spoke, he walked deeper inside. Tang Wulin and his companions were feeling bolder after their superb trick. Fearlessly, they followed behind in great strides, looking at their surroundings with curious eyes. The variety of equipment in the warehouse appeared extremely advanced. Soon they could see some gigantic soul cannons. The silver-white cannon barrels were so incomparably large that they could still sense the lethal aura emitted from the cannons, despite there being no infusion of soul energy. The other military officer was already waiting for them in a more spacious area after they walked for another 100 meters. The Northsea Army Corps uniform was a dark shade of blue. The officer's tidy military uniform complemented his handsome face with 2 rings upon the epaulette on his shoulder and a silver star in the middle. 2 rings and 1 star signified that he held the rank of major. The major appeared to be over 30 years old with a tall and well-built physique. There was a warm smile on his face. "The special privileged child of Shrek Academy, welcome to the Northsea Army Corps." Tang Wulin's heart thudded loudly as he took a few steps forward hastily. "Hello, sir. Excuse us for our abrupt appearance. Sorry for giving you so much trouble." Tang Wulin told the tale which he had come up with earlier about how they wished to undergo special training with the Northsea Army Corps for a period of time in order to complete the testing mission assigned to them by the Academy. "After some serious consideration, we felt that we should come over right away in hope that the Northsea Army Corps would take us in." Tang Wulin had a certain way with his smile. He was quite handsome, so he seemed kind and approachable once he had retracted his Golden Dragon King bloodline aura. The major nodded and smiled as well. He said, "I understand. However, little brother, I wonder if you've thought about one issue here. Seeing that Shrek Academy assigned our Northsea Army Corps as your testing location, what's the difficult part of the test?" Tang Wulin was stunned. He had constructed the narrative about this test because he could not reveal the truth before he was assured that the other party would agree to help them. "What do you mean?" Tang Wulin looked at the major in confusion. The major continued smiling as he said, "Shrek Academy's lessons always have a purpose. The truth is, the group of you are not the first batch of students that arrived here. Before you, your academy's people come over here about once every few years. Only that not many would come knocking on our door directly like you did. Generally, they searched for the opportunity to secretly smuggle themselves across the sea. Some even attempted to infiltrate our aircraft. Most of them tried those methods. On the other hand, this is actually my first time encountering the situation where all of you entered in such a grand manner. I can't help saying you are all even more courageous and confident than your seniors." Tang Wulin did not feel good upon listening to the major's words. He suddenly discovered that he had made a grave mistake. If they were not the first batch of students heading for military training, then those that came here before them were also seniors from Shrek Academy's inner court. They were unaware about the history of this military training, but the only thing they could confirm was that at least Elder CAI's batch had gone through with it. If the goal was the same, how did the seniors reach the island with the Northsea Army Corps guarding the coastal areas? Moreover, the seniors had also taken the gold path within the allotted time as well. Was he walking right into a trap? Yi Xinglan raised her brows ever so slightly. Tang Wulin spread out his arms subconsciously in order to block his companions. Senior officer, what is it that you want from us? Tang Wulin asked. He understood that acting impulsively would not solve the problem, as this man would not be standing before them speaking so calmly with such confidence and composure without having made adequate preparations, knowing that all 7 of them were Soul Kings. During that split second, Tang Wulin made a lot of judgments in his heart and realized that the only thing the other party was unaware of was their identity as the current generation's Shrek 7 monsters. This was also the only secret they could keep now. The Major spoke, this is rather impressive. It's not easy for people your age to keep calm under pressure. The truth is, I can't help saying more than I should. Your downfall today can be blamed entirely on your academy. We received notification beforehand that 7 Shrek Academy students were heading here and that your purpose was to head to Demon Island. However, I think you'll find that it's impossible to cross our line of defense here. We have the responsibility to protect the safety of the Federation's citizens. We can't allow anyone to get close to the sea. According to the timeline given by your academy, all of you must arrive on Demon Island in 15 days after departure. If not, the mission is considered a failure with severe implications. Thus, we will simply imprison all of you in the base for 10 days, exceeding your 15-day time limit, before we release you. 3 black lines extended across Tang Wulin's forehead. The Academy was setting them up, wasn't it? The Academy had even notified the Northsea Army Corps about their operations timeline. This was simply... Could they possibly fight the Army Corps on their own? The Major spoke with a smile on his face. It was genuinely a smart move for all of you to have faced us so calmly. On the other hand, if you were to attack me, it would mean that all of you are launching an attack on the Federation's military. At that point, it's in the hands of military protocol even if I were to give the order to kill all of you. However, I'm only going to imprison all of you for a period of time. All right, if you could all please surrender without resistance now. Surrender without resistance? Humph. Yu Jingyu gave a cold snort. The Major spoke, do you wish to resist? All of you can try then, Take a look at your surroundings. Tang Wulin did not look, but he could already sense that the metal gun barrels had extended slowly and pointed in their direction from the surroundings of the warehouse. Even though he did not understand the specific function of these gun barrels, he could tell that these were extremely deadly weapons judging from the gun barrel's length and size. Tang Wulin spoke, don't move. The Major spoke with a smile, come, put them all in soul seal handcuffs. Soldiers ran out from behind with metallic square boxes, 1 foot wide and half a foot tall, in each of their hands. They walked in quick strides and arrived before Tang Wulin. The Major spoke, there's still time if you wish to resist. Tang Wulin sighed before he dejectedly said, I didn't expect this at all. The Academy is too crafty. Nevertheless, this is a profound lesson for us, so at least the journey hasn't been in vain. We've lost, but we won't make the same mistake the next time. No one is allowed to resist. Do as they ask. We shall be more intelligent in the future. As he was saying that, he raised his hand spontaneously. A soldier suspended the metal box above Tang Wulin's hands as it rapidly cracked open and closed downward. Tang Wulin's wrists were wrapped within the box. Immediately, Tang Wulin could feel as intense numbness radiated from his wrists, causing his whole body to shudder. His soul power was immediately sealed to the point that he could not feel it at all. In the end, the rest of the group followed Tang Wulin's instructions, and one by one they were bound with soul seal handcuffs. A sense of hopelessness was revealed in Xu Xiaoyon's face. This is bad. Captain, what should we do? She was sobbing and her voice sounded fearful. Don't be afraid. We'll be fine. It's all right to forego the test mission this time and return to face our punishment. Don't worry, we haven't done anything. The Northsea Army Corps may be able to detain us, but they can't do anything to us. After all, the Academy knows that we're here and we haven't attacked or stolen anything. The Major smiled and spoke, that's why I said you made the correct choice. Take them away and detain them. By the way, I graduated from Imperial Sun Moon Soul Master Academy. Perhaps I might add that the high-ranking officials of the Northsea Army Corps are mostly graduates of Imperial Sun Moon Soul Master Academy. Thus, we've always hated Shrek Academy. Bet you didn't expect that an army corps based in the Northeast has its high-ranking officials originating from Imperial Sun Moon Soul Master Academy in the far west. Are all of you aware of the relationship between the two academies? Were they aware of it? Could they not be aware of it? Tang Wulin once brought his comrades along and ran into trouble when they were headed to Imperial Sun Moon Soul Master Academy. Tang Wulin lowered his head with an unpleasant expression on his face as if he had acquiesced for their action, which was similar to entering a thief's den. The Major continued, "Stop pretending. I'm not fond of Shrek Academy. Judging by your appearances, you're all certainly inner court students with 5-ring cultivation bases. Surely, all of you are one-word battle armor masters. Don't worry, I won't be lenient with you. I won't be compassionate no matter how much you pretend. Put the Spirit Seal helmet on each of them just to be on the safe side. You can have a good sleep at our place for the next 10 days. I promise to release all of you 10 days later. Perhaps, all of you will be quite hungry by then, but you won't die for sure." Tang Wulin watched helplessly as the soldiers procured the helmets and walked over when he suddenly raised his head while his face was filled with panic. You can't do this. You. Ouch. The helmet covered his head as an intense magnetic field enveloped his mind instantly. Tang Wulin's body slumped to the ground. The rest of them had their soul power sealed, so it was impossible for them to resist. The helmets were secured on their heads in succession, causing them to faint one after another onto the ground. The Major shrugged. It should have been like this since the beginning. Shrek Academy's students are cunning, so I won't be giving them any chances. The Spirit Seal helmet is used specifically on felons and is meant to seal their spiritual sea. Have a good night's sleep. I wonder if Shrek Academy will treat them any better in the future because of this incident. Or perhaps, expel them immediately? Don't blame me but your academy for being callous. Take them away and send them to the solitary room. Release them 10 days later. The soldiers ran over. Each of the Shrek 7 monsters was accompanied by 2 soldiers as they were quickly taken to the solitary room. The Major touched his chin with his right hand as he was deep in thought. He spoke in a deep voice, "Send the Special Action Unit to search the periphery of the base and use the radar to probe if there are any more of their friends hiding outside. Check for mechas especially." "Yes, Major." The Major squinted his eyes. He had always been known as a meticulous person because he never missed out even a single detail. The dark solitary room had been the most terrifying place for the soldiers all along. There was utterly nothing in the 2-feet-tall solitary room. It was precisely a height that no one could sit up, and there was not a ray of light inside. There was only a small opening for food to be sent through. The most frightening part about the solitary room was that it was truly claustrophobic. It would be considered remarkable if an ordinary person could withstand 7 days of imprisonment in the room. One's spirit would eventually be broken if one is held in a dark, confined space for a long period of time. Tang Wulin and his companions were buckled in handcuffs and helmets as they lay quietly in the solitary room. It was not known how much time had passed when a pair of hands began moving slowly in the dark space. The hands grabbed the 2 sides of a helmet gently before prying them apart slowly. The helmet could not be opened without key or electronic passcode, but it was pried open forcefully by the hands. It was difficult since the hands were handcuffed. The hands struggled for a while and then the metal handcuffs were shattered instantly. The next moment, he lifted the helmet with his hands. He rubbed his wrists as he sensed the soul power in his body recovering gradually, with faint purple light emitting from his eyes. Was that not Tang Wulin who was struggling free from the handcuffs and removing the helmet? He looked at his surroundings and found that his comrades were with him as expected. He heaved a sigh of relief. He stopped briefly before prying open Xie Xie's handcuff and helmet. Then, a hand covered Xie Xie's mouth. After a long while, Xie Xie's body shook once gently. Tang Wulin immediately whispered softly, "Don't speak, be quiet." Xie Xie immediately understood the situation. His soul power began to recover rapidly, accompanied by the recovery of his spirit. Tang Wulin repeated the procedure as he removed his comrades' handcuffs and helmets in succession. How did his spiritual sea remain unaffected by the helmet? It was nothing special actually. The soul seal handcuff was capable of sealing one soul power undoubtedly. The same situation would have repeated itself had another more powerful soul master been buckled with the soul seal handcuff. However, one should not forget that Tang Wulin still had his strong blood essence power. He immediately urged his blood essence power to his head to form a protective shield. If the Major were to witness Tang Wulin's manipulation, he would have been convinced that he did not manage to seal off Tang Wulin's power. At the time, Tang Wulin's face was covered with a golden dragon pattern. Using his blood essence power as a barrier, the helmet's spirit sealing was rendered ineffective. The rest was just easy. When the situation on the outside was quiet enough, Tang Wulin immediately removed the seals on him as well as his comrades. The academy is crafty, Xie could not help speaking softly. The others were breathing rather heavily. The academy's choice of Northsea City was not without purpose. The Northsea Army Corps specifically withheld them to deceive them. Anyone who understood military training would look at them with a piteous gaze. They had already faced such a situation although they had yet to arrive on the island. All right. It's pointless for us to badmouth them. At least our situation here is not the worst. At least, we're still inside the base. Xie, unleash your clone to explore the outside. Tang Wulin rolled around as he was saying that. He then stopped at the entrance of the solitary room. It was just a small door, but it was heavily locked. Tang Wulin squinted his eyes and focused his spirit to sense the situation outside. There was no guard outside. Perhaps it was due to their confidence in the effectiveness of their soul seal handcuff and spirit seal helmet. However, Tang Wulin did not act recklessly. He turned around and spoke to Xie, your clone must be careful when it's outside. You'll only need to locate the soul airplane. There'll certainly be a lot of security measures in the base. The thermographic equipment should be unable to detect you, but the energy analyzer can. Dissipate your clone immediately if you're discovered. They won't suspect it's us anyhow. Be careful and bring back as many useful items as possible. All right. Don't worry, leave it to me. Xie nodded at Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin stretched out his right hand, but he did not attempt to open the door. Instead, he went to the side of the solitary room. This is the ventilation shaft. I'm going to remove the cover. I've sensed it with my spiritual power and found that the shaft is very small so no ordinary human can pass through. However, I think your clone should be able to do so. Xie nodded. No problem. I can shrink my energy form clone so that it can pass through anything the size of an arm's thickness. Sure, come. Tang Wulin made a gentle slash with his golden dragon claw and cut open the vent. The soul ring on Xie's body flashed once before a shadow dragon clone split from his body with the shadow dragon dagger in his hand and bored into the vent silently. The clone shrank under Xie's control and squirmed out. He was soon on the outside. It was a corridor with a row of solitary rooms on each side. Xie observed his surroundings for a moment, but there was no movement. He walked cautiously along the wall. He observed his surroundings as he walked. He was not afraid of being discovered since he was a clone and an invisible one. Nevertheless, he could not allow anyone to discover him near the solitary room because the Northsea Army Corps guards would associate his presence to their escape. Fortunately, there was no energy analyzer here. The solitary room was not an important military restricted area as it was mostly used to detain soldiers with military discipline issues. There were prison cells and security locks along the way. Finally, he arrived on the outside without any incident. The skies had already darkened on the outside, but the Northsea Army Corps base was still bright as day with soldiers jogging past occasionally. Xie observed quietly in a dimmed corner. His clone was incapable of functioning too far away from his body. The farthest distance he could go was a kilometer with his cultivation base as a Soul King currently. His soul power and spiritual power consumption would increase tremendously if he were to maintain the control of his clone beyond this distance. The place was so spacious and vast that Xie had no way of determining his location. Fortunately, he soon stumbled onto the aircraft. A giant warehouse door opened slowly not far away from the solitary room. An aircraft that had just landed was cruising over and stopped in the warehouse. Xie was surprised to find the warehouse for parked aircraft was situated next to their solitary room, separated by only 2 walls. Xie dashed into the warehouse just in time to watch the aircraft canopy opening and 4 members of the flight crew disembarking from the aircraft. Xie took a few leaps and landed on top of the aircraft. He then probed around and explored the aircraft. It was a 4-seater fighter aircraft with tight spaces inside. There were all sorts of gauges and complicated instruments, while the lights on top were gradually switched off at present. The flight crew chatted as they got off the plane. The lifted aircraft canopy was slowly closing. There was also another aircraft that was similar to this fighter aircraft in the warehouse. Xie squinted as he got off the plane silently and quickly returned to the solitary room. Tang Wulin listened as Xie reported on the situation, after which he pondered for a long while. This is truly a good opportunity. However, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to fly the aircraft. It's best for us to break into the warehouse and wait until the aircraft is going for a mission. This means that we can't just hijack the aircraft because we'll be easily discovered. Yet, the inside of the aircraft is too small that there's barely space for us to conceal ourselves. Xie spoke. There were a few specialized maintenance staff who went into the plane to check its condition after those flight crew left. I suspect they'll be performing another check before the next flight. Yu Jingyu spoke. The fighter aircraft's superiority lies in its high speed. It can fly 30 kilometers in the blink of an eye at full throttle. However, the fighter aircraft has too few seats. We'll also need a professional flight crew to fly the plane anyhow. There is utterly no way the plane can take so many of us. Moreover, the risk of 2 aircraft taking off at the same time and getting caught is high. The capacity of a transport aircraft or helicopter is enough, but its slow speed won't even make it out of the Northsea Army Corps base before we're caught. Tang Wulin spoke. Xie, do you think that it's possible for all of us to squeeze into a fighter aircraft without taking the flight crew into account? Xie answered hesitantly. Tough. There are only 4 seats but 7 of us. I'm afraid Shulishi can't fit in 1 seat. The plane is just too small. Tang Wulin squinted. It's not impossible if some of us can pilot the aircraft. However, we must be able to fly the aircraft. We flying the aircraft? Tang Wulin spoke. The aircraft's control is certainly more complicated than a Soul car's, but it may not be more complicated than a mecha's. I think that it's even simpler than the mecha. Leaving with a flight crew is too risky and not within our control. What if we were to meet with a flight crew who faces death with no regrets? Thus, I came up with this idea. Perhaps we have to fly our way out. Yet, who's going to fly the aircraft? Yi Xinglan asked in puzzlement. Tang Wulin looked towards Xie. We still have 9 more days. I believe the aircraft in the warehouse will take off once again during these 9 days. So, you can take the opportunity to observe how they control the aircraft during takeoff and learn the procedure. I'm not asking much of you so long as you can take off and take us where we want to go. We'll only need to fly 30 kilometers. Xie widened his eyes as he stared at Tang Wulin. Big brother, aren't you afraid of a crash? Do you trust me that much? Tang Wulin shrugged and spoke. There's always a possibility of that, but we probably won't end in a crash with Zhengyu and Yuan and present. However, I'm afraid that we may not be able to join the military training anymore if we fail. So, we're counting on you. Xie swallowed a gulp of saliva. Well, I'll give it a shot. Tang Wulin spoke. We still have time, so we must organize our plan to our best abilities. Xie, thank you for your effort. You'll need to observe and learn about piloting an aircraft. Please pay attention to every single detail. For the next few days, Northsea Army Corps would send someone over to monitor the situation in the solitary room daily. The helmets in a system and handcuff were first damaged before they were donned again. It was an easy task to feign. After all, the solitary room was so low that the soldiers who were keeping guard only took a glance. They left upon seeing no movement in the solitary room. It was finally the 7th day. Xie returned stealthily. How's it? Tang Wulin asked softly. Xie answered, I can now confirm that the two aircraft in the warehouse conduct reconnaissance flight missions separately every morning and every night. I've already memorized the procedures of their takeoffs. I don't think it would be a problem for me to pilot the aircraft at full throttle. So, when should we take action? Tang Wulin took a deep breath. We've already planned the measure for every possible emergency except for this final bit. The situation this time will be dangerous. However, the Shrek 7 monsters would never return in defeat. Let's make a move tomorrow morning. It should be easier in the morning since the guards on duty at this time would most likely be tired. Early morning the next day. As the leader of the flight crew, Lu Fu was the first to arrive at the warehouse. He greeted the maintenance crews who were just done examining the aircraft. His face was filled with satisfaction as he looked up to his aircraft. He was fond of airplanes ever since he was young. He enjoyed the feeling of flying in the sky. He had undergone grueling training in order to become a qualified flight crew. He began flying 5 years ago after his relentless efforts. He had invested countless hours of hard work as a flight crew apprentice in the beginning until he became a flight crew charge hand. He was truly passionate about flying. The aircraft before him was a new model of the Federation's fighter aircraft named Skywing F-17. It was the 17th generation of fighter aircraft equipped with sole turbine ejector capable of instant acceleration and breaking the sound barrier within 26 seconds. It was equipped with full-sole destroy cannons for continuous attacks and built to carry 8 fixed-sole bombs for high-altitude long-range attacks. It was a new generation of attack aircraft that could launch attacks from the air. This generation of fighter aircraft was adopted by the Federation 6 years ago and had been in active service ever since. It was well known for its stability and super-fast attacking speed, which was most suited to execute continuous attacks in tandem with the mecha. Alternatively, it could be used as the mecha troops' fire support. The fighter aircraft Skywing F-17 had a length of 36 meters and a 29-meter wingspan. It was equipped with one turbine ejector, so it needed a distance of 900 meters to take off. All this information was deeply seared into Lu Fu. He loved his fighter aircraft and was thoroughly familiar with its every detail. The Skywing F-17's complete flight crew team was made up of 4 people, namely the aircraft captain, who was also the charge hand of the team, the co-captain, the cannon shooter, and the missile shooter. The captain's main responsibility was flying the Skywing F-17, while the co-captain was in charge of navigating, communicating with the control tower, and monitoring the radar. The missile shooter and the cannon shooter were in charge of handling the missile and cannon control systems respectively. Hence, the necessity of equipping the Skywing F-17 with 4 flight members. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.